welcome to Board Game Madness. I'm Mike Ganade, and in today's matchup, we have the number 13 seed, Radlands, versus the number 20 seed, Furnace. As always, I like to start these videos by giving you a quick overview of each game, in case you've never played it, just so you get a sense of what it's like. Radlands is a post-apocalyptic, Mad Max style type universe, and it's a dueling card game. It's a head-to-head card game where you're trying to blow each other's camps up or bases up using different warriors from sort of the Radlands or the Wastelands. One of the unique things about it is you actually don't have your own personal deck. There's a shared deck that you draw from, and the entire game is contained in this small box. So for a head-to-head card game, you know, it's pretty easy to get a hold of everything, which is nice. Furnace, on the other hand, is an auction engine building game. It's basically broken up into two phases. It all takes place in sort of the Industrial Revolution. And the two phases are that there's an auction phase where you bid on which card you want to add to your tableau. And there's a tableau engine running phase where your engines and your buildings run and generate coal and resources for you. And the goal is to score the most points at the end of a few rounds. So with that, let's get into round one of this head-to-head matchup, which is production levels. And we've actually got two pretty well-established companies here. This is actually Roxley, which is known for having amazing production, but this is a simpler game than what they typically do. So and the other thing I should note too is Radlands, I have the cheap normal version, which is content complete, but there are like extreme deluxe versions with playmats and deluxe components. The only real component in the game are these water chips, which I think you can get like plastic versions if you spend more, but you just flip them over to show they're exhausted or not. They're basically the resource of the game. It's how you play and spend cards. So for me, it wasn't worth spending a lot more to get a big resource for that. The big draw of this game is it's mostly a card game. It's a dueling card game, but the artwork in this game is absolutely phenomenal. I'll just throw up some of the cards I go through so everyone can see them. I mean, this is one of the coolest cards. But you're basically hiring these workers, these mercenaries, to defend your camp. You also have some action cards that you can play like this, which deal damage. And all the cards have some dual usage, which is nice when you play the game. Since you're drawing from a central deck, all the cards keep things moving. It's a really tight, competitive head-to-head card game with absolutely gorgeous art. Now, Furnace, on the other hand, also has cards. Their cards are pretty gorgeous as well. They definitely capture the Industrial Revolution really well. I'll just show a couple of these. I'm just seeing there's all the different buildings, and there's also some characters, I think. Yeah, here's some of the characters. And you start as one of these industrialists. And then you start with an industrialist, and you start with like a starting card that gives you some starting stuff. And then you bid on these cards and put together your engine. They all show you sort of what they produce and what they can convert resources into. The resources in the game are coal, which are just black cubes, oil barrels, which are these yellow hexagon things, and then iron, which are, you know, silver sort of iron bars. Nice wooden components, nothing special. You also get all of these are the bidding chips for the auctioning. So these are the numbers you place on like the priority of the cards you want to get. And different numbers trump other numbers and win. So you're all bidding, taking turns spending which bid you have to get which cards you need for your engine. And both of these games are pretty fast, just as far as gameplay goes. But we're talking about production here. Components-wise, this has a couple cardboard water tokens. This has a few more tokens. They both have decks of cards. There's nothing really that, as far as table presence or production goes, where one really is beating the other exceptionally. I think it sort of really comes down to the card art or the general. I would actually say this is a tie. I really don't know if I could pick one here. So I'm tentatively going to call it a tie. Both artwork is incredible. I can't even say I really like one more than the other. Furnace has less cards and less unique art, but it has some nicer wooden components. Radlands has slightly better card art, but just a few wooden components. So as far as production goes, you really can't go wrong. There's nothing. One of these isn't really better than the other. They're really truly equal as far as production goes. So let's go on to game mechanics. As I mentioned, Radlands is a card game where your cards have sort of dual purpose. They have this icon in the upper right or upper left, sorry, that gives you an alternative to do, and then you can also play and put these cards out to then attack and use their abilities to mess with your opponent. It's a dueling card game. If you've played Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone or any of these dueling card games, you have a really good sense of what the game is and how it works. One of the unique things about it is based on blowing up these base cards that you have. So it's not like a life point game, which I like, but this definitely captures the feel of other dueling card games. It's not doing anything particularly unique. It's just a really solid, tightly built, single box version of that game, which is a little different, but and is nice too. You don't have to invest in building all these new decks and things like that. Furnace, though, for me, is the winner here. The game plays really fast. It's fast and easy to learn. When I play it, we typically play multiple games in a row. It's a really fun game that's easy to teach, to get new players into it, but it's really hard to master. And when you're playing with different people, the bidding can be so tight. One of the things I think it does brilliantly is there's no player downtime in this. The auctioning is super tight, and you're super engaged in the auctioning, even when it's not your turn, because you're really thinking about what cards you want to buy and bid on. And then the engine building phase is simultaneous. Everyone can sort of just do it at the same time. So everyone just sort of produces their resources and takes their stuff. And then you move on to the next round and get into this other tense bidding and auction phase. So it moves really fast. And it really surprised me. The first time I played this game, I was like, wow, for how quickly this plays, the depth of play in it is quite excellent. It's a great game. So I'm going to give the winner. When it comes to gameplay, I definitely would go Furnace for me, if I had to choose between which game to play. Also, of course, 2 to 4 players versus 2 players only. So that also is a factor. Depending on your group size, you can get Furnace to the table more as well. Now, as far as theme goes, I have to give it to Radlands, just because, for me personally, the post-apocalyptic wasteland that you're fighting over when water is, the best resource, and this desolate type thing is a lot more appealing to me than, the Industrial Revolution. But I have to admit that as themes go, the Industrial Revolution and the art of this game is pretty appealing to me as well. Maybe it's the economist in me. That's where I went to university and college to study. So there is an appeal to sort of the industrialist nature of that game that appeals to me a little bit as well. But I have to give it to Radlands. For me, it is the more thematic, fun game when it comes to theme. Okay, last but not least, we have replayability, and right now they're tied. Basically these games are tied despite their seeding. So we have to really think about replayability to sort of hopefully differentiate them. I will say that when I first got Radlands at PAX Unplugged, may have mentioned this already, but we had more than 2 people, but we sort of set up a sort of impromptu tournament where the person who won got to play the game again. And we played the game several times in a row with different people trying different strategies. And we had a really good time with it on that particular night. But with that being said, after that first night where we played it a lot, I haven't really gone back to it a ton. I brought it with me a couple times, stored in my backpack, but it doesn't hit the table as much as I'd like it to. I think the fact that it's a dueling card game limits its appeal. You have to have the right type of player to play against with it. Whereas Furnace, I have played a lot more with a lot more different people. One of my really good design friends actually recommended this game to me originally before I'd even played it, said it was one of their favorite games at a convention we went to. And then I eventually ended up getting it and playing it, and it actually lived up to the hype for me. I think it's incredibly fast and easy to learn and incredibly fun. And again, the simultaneous action of it just means that you're enjoying the whole game the whole way through. You're never sitting around waiting for your turn. Or it never feels that way, which is a great feeling. And I've taught this from everybody from other game designers, other more hobby game people, to my wife, who will play games with me, but it's not her favorite thing to do. And even she likes Furnace and can get into it a lot. So the hardest thing about Furnace, I find, is that the higher the prey count, the better it is. And sometimes you don't have as many people as you'd like. Sometimes you only have you and your wife, and you really want to play this, but it's better with 3 or 4. In fact, the only critique I can say about this game, I played this game so much. This is one of the first games where I was dying for an expansion, because they don't give you enough starting characters and different things to do in this game. I was like, oh, I need this expansion. This game needs an expansion. This game needs an expansion. And I almost never say that about a game. And I actually just recently bought the expansion. I haven't played it yet. I bought it like less than a month ago. I haven't gotten it to the table yet with the expansion, but it's one of the first expansions I bought for a board game in a very long time. So for those reasons, I'm going to give replayability and sort of longevity to Furnace, which means that in this matchup, we have an upset where Furnace is going to take out and move on ahead of Radlands. So as always, thanks for watching Board Game Madness. Hopefully you're enjoying this tournament of board game champions. If you give us a like and subscribe, we really appreciate it. As always, leave some comments down below of any of the games you're rooting for, or games you want to see in a future tournament, potentially, in a future year at some point in time. We really appreciate any feedback and interaction you can give us as a community. And until then, we'll see you next time for the next matchup.